Hey everyone, it's Talia here. Welcome back to another video on this channel. Today I'm going to show you guys how to use your watercolor paints and create this beautiful pastel rainbow leopard design. This video is also a collaboration with my YouTube besties, Sarah from Sarah's Nail Secrets. She saw me post this design on social media and she did her version of it and she filmed it for you guys. So we thought we'd collaborate on this video together. So after you're done watching this one, be sure to head to her channel and check out what she did for it as well. Let's get started. One of my favorite whites to use is Fusion's Walk the Stage. You guys have seen this in so many videos. You're probably sick of me talking about it. But it differs from, say, Light Elegance's white swimsuit in the fact that it's just a little bit brighter. And for this design, I was originally going to go for a pastel leopard rainbow type of look. So I thought if I had a really bright white background, the colors would just pop on it a little more. So I decided to use this on the as the background of the leopard. I initially had just planned to do leopard, but eventually you guys are going to see that we did zebra too. So I decided to put it on her pinky, her pointer, and her thumb, and then on the other two nails I was going to do a pastel glitter mix. Another thing that I wanted to mention about using any of the Fusion color gels is whenever I use the color gels, I always use the Fusion gel brush with them. It has a shorter, stiffer head, and I find that it applies the Fusion products a lot easier than any of the other brushes I've tried. Another one of my could not live without gels is Crystal from Light Elegance. It is a see-through rainbow glitter gel, and I love using it as a background for nails as well as a background for different glitter. Now, I wanted the glitter to be the primary focus of this nail design, which is why I chose to use something that was super see-through. The glitter that was my inspiration for this design is Pastel Rainbow from Glitter Heaven, but I wanted it to have some orange, so I'm going to pull some orange from Pop It Like It's Pastel, as well as some green from this CNS 557. I knew that I wanted my animal print to be pastel in color, so I thought that I would pull some different pastel tones from these glitter mix and have that be the primary focus of this nail design. It didn't turn out to be as such because the watercolors that I use are highly pigmented, so I feel like it wasn't as pastel as I wanted it to be. So if I could go back, I'd probably pick something that was a little bit brighter for these glitter mixes. But generally what I'm doing is applying the rainbow pastel mix all over the entire nail, and then I'm going in with my dotting tool and just picking up some of the yellows and the orange and the green glitters and just put them randomly all over the nails. We are going to embed all of her nails using Fusion's SL Clear. I absolutely love using this gel. It has become a hands down new favorite of mine. Watercolor palette that we're going to use today is this Pastel's Dreams palette from Prima Marketing. I always have these linked in the description box below whenever I use them in videos as well, but I loved the tones of the pastels on this palette. Now this brush, I actually got a lot of questions about it in my last video and I completely forgot to mention it. It is just a watercolor painting brush from Wildflowers, but you can get these at Michael's or on Amazon as well. All I use this for is distributing water into my palette. That way it's all ready to go and easy for me to just start using. Originally I had planned to just do leopard print on this nail design, but then once I grabbed this palette, I was like, hey, you know what? I should try doing zebra with watercolor just to see if it works, because whenever I do zebra, I like to use the Orly Instant Artists, and they're just, you can't even get them anymore. So I'm like, let's try and figure this out with watercolor paints. So whenever I do zebra, I always start with using the belly of my brush and doing like a really thick line and kind of just dragging it out. And then I just go back and forth, alternating the different lines. What I wanted this one to look like is I wanted it to look kind of like an ombre with the color mixing. So I started with my pink, then I wanted an orange, and then I wanted a yellow line. Now I'm gonna go in with a green line here so that it ends up looking like a rainbow zebra design. When you're doing the zebra designs, if you want a thicker line, you're going to use the belly of the brush and just kind of pull up into a finer tip. You can see here that I'm just adding some really fine details to the cuticle as well as the free edge, and I'm using the majority of the pointed end of my brush. So for her pinky nail, I knew that I wanted it to be all leopard. So all I'm doing here is just putting down some random colored spots. I just want to make sure that I'm doing all of the same colors that were in that pastel glitter mix. So we have some blues, we have green, purple, yellow, orange, and pink. They're different sizes. I don't care what the shape is. And then on her thumbnail, I decided to do the same kind of idea with the different leopard spots, except I want it to be going all the way up her nail towards the point. And I want to start with my brighter pinks and kind of fade gradually into a gradient of a rainbow. So we're going to go with our bright pink, our lighter pinks, and gradually we're going to fade into some oranges and some yellows. And I did like the idea of the colors kind of blending together. As you can see here, I initially put down one color and then I went in with a mix of a color, and I loved the gradient effect of this. So this is what I end up going back to and making the rest of the nails look like. While I was working on that thumbnail, this pinky one was drying, and once it is to a fairly dry consistency, I'm going to go in with the alternating colors. So you'll see in the yellow there, I decided to put some orange. In the blue, I decided to put some of the green, and then in the green, some of the yellow. And all this is going to do is create kind of a gradient effect. Now, I'm not randomly placing colors wherever I want it here. I'm putting colors in that are gradually going to fade into each other, such as if it was a rainbow. And all I'm doing right now is just dropping the colors in because I want them to dry so that I can kind of fade them out. So while I was working on that one, this one was all drying, and there was just a few of the spots here that were a little too sheer for me. I wanted them to be a little bit more pigmented on the thumb, and you guys are gonna see I just keep going back and forth between the nails, letting everything dry in between, because if you go in now and start adding different colors and they're too wet, the watercolor is just gonna bleed into each other and you're not gonna get that clear gradient that I'm after. Back to the pinky now that it's had a little bit of time to dry. So all I want to do here is just add some water into these colors. That way they bleed a little bit better. Now, I found it to be a little bit of a balance to kind of put the right amount of water in it, because I didn't want to take too much of the color away that they look so sheer, but I also wanted to add some water to it so that it blended a little bit better. So some of these little dots you're going to see are going to be blended really well and some of them aren't, and that's because I was just trying to find the right balance with it. I totally messed up this stripe by going back in and adding other color, but when it comes to watercolor, I always say do not erase it or take it off, just work with it, because watercolor is so easy to move and blend in different ways. You can usually make any mistake, I do that in quotes, if you guys could see me, it'd be in quotes. Any mistake that you make, you can always kind of work it out by either adding water and blending it out a little bit more, or adding more color and making some sort of new design with it. Similar to her pinky nail here, all I'm doing is just adding some water to it to blend the colors together. So when I say adding water, it means that I have no color on my brush at the time, but every single time I blend, I'm wiping in between each stroke, because you're gonna get more paint in your brush, and if you just kept going in and blending the different colors together, it would just make a giant mess. Back to her zebra nail. So I want this to look kind of like an ombre. So what I want to do is go back into all of the different colors here and add a little bit of the color that would sit right beside it. So on that purple, I want to have some of the blue. On that pink, I wanted some of that orange, and then some on the orange, some yellow, on the yellow, some green. If that makes sense, all we're doing is going back and forth with the colors to make it look like a gradient effect. I kept the colors a little bit more wet so that they would bleed into the color that they were sitting beside. This way it would look more like an ombre. After your watercolor bases are 100% completely dry, I'm gonna go in with this Classics watercolor palette, and this one just has the classic normal colors that you would want. This is a fantastic palette to get if you were just wanting to start out with watercolors, because it has every single possible color you would need in it, and then you could just mix the different shades. I was on the fence about getting this one, and I finally bit the bullet and did it. because I much prefer these Prima marketing watercolor paints to any of the other ones I have in my collection. I love how small they are. I love how pigmented they are. They're so easy to work with. So all I'm doing in this one is taking the black and I'm outlining my leopard print on my pinky. I've said this in videos before, whenever I do leopard, you want it to be messy, you want it to be shaky, you want it to be not even, you want it to be all over the place. You want different widths and circle designs on each of the nails. You also want to make sure that you're using a brush that has a super, super fine tip. I do leave these ones in the description box below, but any of your watercolor brushes, if they're actual watercolor brushes, will typically be designed to have a fatter belly and then a super fine tip as well. So it makes it a lot easier for doing fine detailed work like this. After you've outlined all of your spots, you want to make sure that you're going in with some random little spots all over the place, as well as some bigger spots just to kind of fill in some of the gaps. This will make it look super cohesive and a lot better. Now on to the zebra nail. I am going to be the first to say that I don't love how this came together with outlining the blacks like this. If I were to go over and do this nail again, I would do the black first and then go in with the gradient colors after. I just thought that this would add some highlight and a little bit of dimension to it, but I actually kind of preferred the way it looked where it was not outlined. But because I was outlining the leopard print, I thought it might be better to go in with some color. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I loved how this one turned out. But all I'm doing is initially I was doing the really, really fine lines, and then I go back in with the belly of my brush and do some of the thicker lines. This was another mistake of mine. If I was gonna do it so it was color first and then outlined, I feel like I should have just gone straight in with the thicker lines, faded into the thinner lines, if that makes sense. Whatever, like I don't know. Like I said, I don't want to go back and just completely erase this nail. I can make it work, especially with watercolor paints. I would just do it differently next time. And if you guys are going to attempt a nail design like this, hopefully you can learn from my mistakes and just do the black first. I think that would have been a lot easier in this particular design. I have to say the thumbs were my favorite. I loved how it was this gradient rainbow design that went from the cuticle to the tip just on the side of her nails. I absolutely love how this turned out. I'm doing the exact same thing here by just outlining the leopard spots. If I want a thicker line, I'm just using more of the belly of my brush, and if I want thinner lines, I'm using the tip of my brush as well. Don't forget to go in and add your extra little dots, because this is just going to make it look a little bit more cohesive. Again, don't be perfect with this. Be messy, because it looks a lot better. One of my favorite things to do with zebra nails is add some Swarovski crystals onto it, and because I wasn't loving the way that this zebra nail turned out, I thought this would give it a little bit of something extra, but I didn't want to add any colored crystals because I thought that it would take away from the design. So all we're using is clear here. The big one in the middle is an SS20, the ones on the sides are SS9s, and then we're going to go in with some of my SS5s to kind of fill in the gaps there. After I'm done with the crystals, all I'm going to do is top gloss these nails. You want to make sure that your watercolor paints are 1000% dry before you go in with any of your top gloss, or else it's just going to smear that beautiful artwork that you just did. And I like to suggest doing a second coat of top gloss over top of watercolor paints just to kind of hold it in a little bit as well. When top glossing over top of your Swarovski crystals, just make sure you take a finer brush and surround them instead of going over top of the edges. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this tutorial. I hope that it helped you out with some rainbow animal print nail designs. Don't forget to head on over to Sarah's channel and check out what she did for this as well. I can't wait to see how hers came together. I was so flattered that she was inspired by this design because I personally love how it came together. I love the idea of using your watercolor paints to create a gradient rainbow animal print design. Make sure you're following me on all of my social media, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!